afternoon, lovely people. This is Marie Alessi with yet another Up Spiral Grief interview, and today I've got the lovely Brian Wall joining me. Brian, would you do us the honor? We connected on LinkedIn, but do you want to do a quick intro for the group?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Brian Wall, originally from North Carolina. I've been all over quite a bit, been in the counseling field for over 2 decades across 4 countries. And so licensed mental health counselor here in Florida now, and also a master's level addiction professional, and then qualified supervisor. So work at a local treatment center here, and pretty active on LinkedIn, and somehow we were on the same corner at one point. And so that's how we connected.
And have been ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah. I constantly see things popping up from you, which happens when you connect on LinkedIn, when you are interested in each other's, activities that you do. And I really am very invested in the work that you do. I think it's incredibly important, and we already did a quick pre-interview, and I believe you're also in our resource corner already. So
Yes.
for those who want to connect with Brian, we will definitely share your links underneath the interview, but you can also be found in our resource corner. So Brian, I would like to take our audience back to your beginning. Actually, how did you come into this field? Because there's usually an entire story. It's not just, hey, I'm going to work with, mental health or addiction prevention, anything like that. It's not a decision that comes overnight. There's usually quite a story and a path before that. Do you mind taking us on that path and share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. It's not something I woke up one day and thought, gosh, I'd love to help people unpack all their emotional garbage every day of my life and make very little money doing it, and get super frustrated because I can't help some people. And
you make it sound so enticing.
It was not something I wanted to sign up for. In fact, I really chased other ghosts in my life quite a bit, for some time. And so when I went to college and swam in college under scholarship, and I just wanted to swim, and got to college and didn't realize you got to go to class and do all these other things, and I was really bad at that part. So ended up getting into a lot of the social scene, and picked up a lot of really bad habits, drug related, and that ended up getting me in a position where I lost my scholarship and dropped out of school. And I was pre-med originally and wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon because I stepped on a nail when I was young and almost lost my leg and to gangrene. And the guy that saved it was just awesome. Dr. David Fagenbaum. I remember him like yesterday. Super incredible guy. And so really inspired me, and that's what I wanted to do. And got out of the field. And I think probably my own addiction really took me down roads that I didn't sign up for either, but taught me a lot. And always throughout, high school and college, and through all the mishaps that I created for myself through the addiction process, I was always hearing from folks like, gosh, I just feel like you've known me since I was born, and you're so easy to connect with, and all these sort of counselor type things. And so I got into sales, and again, trying my best to make a lot of money doing as little as possible, to be quite honest with you. And it kept leading back to the same stuff. I just really connected well with people very easily. Seemed to see things that they didn't see in their own issues, and was helpful in guiding them out of the darkness at times. And so finally got married in early 2000s, and went back to school and got my undergraduate degree in business, and really just called the registrar and she said, wow, what are you interested in doing? What do you want to come back to school for? And I was like, I'm doing it because I have to. I have no desire to go back to school, right? What am I closest in? And she said, business. And I said, great, I'll do it. And she goes, do you have any interest in business? And I was like, well, I do now. Let's just go ahead and finish it up, because I really wanted to get my master's in counseling, and I knew I needed to finish up the undergrad before then. So went ahead and finished up my business degree, and then went on straight through and got my master's. And the rest is history. I've been licensed in North Carolina and Michigan and Florida now. And so it's
I just need to say hi to Jeff. Jeff Johnson,
Yeah.
just Stein Johnson is like, love Brian
I
Wall.
love
So
that guy
you've got a
so
fan
much.
joining in already. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love your honesty in all of that, because, you know, let's face it, we've all been down that road where we're like, okay, what's a shortcut? What's the easiest way? I really want this, but how do I get there without having to? And, you know, I love that honesty. So how did you then get through that? Like, did you actually develop a sort of interest for business to get you through this, or did you just really get through it to get to?
No, I bullshitted my way through the whole thing. No, I had no interest at all in the business side of things. So yeah, I didn't. I figured out how many hours I had to do, and I just kind of set my internal clock to get through it, and did all the paperwork, you know, submitted everything, whatever. I've always been kind of good at school, and it's never really been a struggle. So I was like, I'll get through it. And so I did it and learned some things here and there. And then I got to my master's degree, really started studying some stuff that really intrigued me, really interested me. And so I ended up graduating with a 3.9, I think. Never really struggled on that side, not because I'm a genius or anything, but I just really had an interest at that point in my life. And so it went pretty smoothly, the grad degree piece. And then I was going to get my doctorate in psychology. And my wife at the time, she's passed away since, which is part of where we connect. She told me, she said, if you're going to get your doctorate, I don't think I can make it through this. The master's was enough. Working and doing everything. She's like, I just can't do this. This is too much, you know? So I ended up, I did it for one semester and then dropped out after that out of respect for her and wanted to obviously, you know, put into our relationship. I'm glad I did.
Yeah. I'm glad you did too, really, in particular, knowing how the story continues. So it's really beautiful. And we just had this conversation over the weekend as well, you know, how so many people, one friend in particular, and I'm not going to mention her name because I don't want to out her on that, but it was always like she was so often put to the test in terms of, here's your decision, you know, money or adventure, and she always went for adventure, and I love it. It's just, you know, because she's got everything happening for her, you know. She's had the most amazing job offers and everything, and she did all of that as well, obviously, otherwise she wouldn't be able to finance her adventure. But there was so often, well, I really need to continue this so I can pay for that. But it's like, you know, life is so short. And we were in a financial position one day where we were really struggling, and a friend of mine helped me out, bless her, she was beautiful, and I was ready to pay her back the money, and she said, Marie, we're not in a rush, just take your time.
Wow.
And we were literally faced a decision, and I remember that so vividly. When we were going on our 10-year wedding anniversary, we went on an 18-day cruise to Hawaii from Sydney. And it was literally the decision, do I pay back the money that I owe my friend, or do I go on the adventure? And I told her, and I said, I feel really bad, like, but, you know, it's our 10-year wedding anniversary. I'd really love to do it. And at the same time, and I knew I was good for the money, and I knew I could pay her back easily after that. But it was in that moment we had to make the decision. And she said, please go, do it. Pay us back whenever. We're not in a rush. And we did. Yeah. And we did pay her back the money, I think half a year later or a year later, and it was all done. But Rob passed 2 years later. And I'm so freaking glad that we did that. So I'm always like, you know, you need to live life in a way that you're passionate, that you do it. I'm not saying run around and be in debt everywhere, but, you know, it's like make your decisions wisely, like follow your heart, live life, don't just follow the money. And we all do at the beginning. When we're young, we all do. We think that's the, you know, the only important thing in life. But the older we get and the more experiences we have, the more we realize what's really important in life. So tell us how your story continued.
It's interesting. You just mentioned Jeff. Absolutely adore that guy. Love him.
Same here.
Pieces.
Fan club.
Oh my gosh, I can't say enough. I really can't. And just had a really bad day today in my own life. I just the energies were off. Everything was off, and I was struggling. And I reached out to him and called him and gave him an earful. I'm sure he was like, what is wrong with Brian? What is going on with this guy today? You know, I had a day, you know, I'm human and I just had a horrible, you know, and he probably doesn't know it, but I got off the phone feeling honestly a lot better. And it was like, it just reminded me, man, oh my gosh, the guy, air hug all day long for that guy. But it's like, he helped me realize that, you know what, this is, I don't want to say my lot in life, but this is what I feel like I've been chosen to do. And it's kind of an honor to be selected to do that, to help people. And I think God uses me in pretty powerful ways when I allow him and I get out of the way. And I thought, you know, after talking with Jeff, I thought about, you know, I was driving home and I was just thinking like, you know, what if I was doing something I really didn't like there's always that imbalance. So where is the balance for me? And I shared some of the things that I thought were about an imbalance. And he was kind of like, well, then go do it. Like, who's stopping you? Like, just go do it. Like, take control. Like, you're in a place in your life you can do that. Like, just do it. And so love having people like that in my life that give me a wake up call when I need to hear it. And he's always pretty direct with me when I need to hear it. And so love that guy. It's good to see. I
love it.
Yeah. So, so yeah, where were we? So, finished college and went, went in to do my counseling thing and really wanted to be CEO and, all this stuff and whatever, I wanted to climb the ladder, and I just, the more and more I got closer to the top, it just didn't feel as good. I'm clinical director now at a facility I work at here locally and love it. They're an amazing bunch. I'm not just saying that here on camera, like they're an incredible bunch, and it's hard, it seems at times, to find that in South Florida. Treatment down here is a little different, and finally found my match. Really this fit is just perfect. And so as I began to climb, I began to realize that I was trying to fit myself in. I was chasing a ghost. It's kind of like chasing this something that I don't even know who put that out there, but it was me at some point that thought that was what I needed to do. And I just gotten to the point where the money is not, I don't really care so much. Like I said, my wife passed away in 2013. We were missionaries down the Dominican Republic at the time, and she got cancer, and we came back to the States because the treatment down there is not as good, obviously, in developing country, and we're able to get her some treatment for about 4 years, and it went into remission and came back metastatic and all over the place, and so took her life in 2013. And me and my 4-year-old daughter were left, and just kind of picked the pieces up, just kind of put it back together. And I promise you, we were horrible at it. I mean, disastrous, but I know I was. Like I went deep into addiction and was using day in and day out, anytime I could find, crack mostly, and just trying to get her to school and pick her up and look like I was somewhat in one piece every time she saw me. And I was a mess. I was an absolute wreck. We had lost our house, foreclosure. I lost my job because I wanted to take care of my wife at the time, and and my daughter. So we were living in an upstairs 10 by 10 room in my parents' house, pull-out couch, all of us sleeping in the same place, carrying her up and down the steps because she couldn't get up the steps because she was 80 pounds soaking wet at that point. And it just kind of unraveled from there. And it got to a point, she finally passed away, and that was a day of celebration for her, for me. She wanted to go, she was ready to go. And it was at that point, I feel like we really started making attempts to pick up the pieces, and I just started realizing this was really a spiritual battle that I was in the midst of.
I can only imagine.
The enemy, you've been there, right? So you know this very well, intimately, and it's like there was this battle of like, what now? Like, I remember waking up the first morning of her death, and I had to come back from the hospice place that she was at, and had to go on a walk with my daughter and explain to her that last night was the last time you're going to see mom. She's not coming home, And that was a really, that I can't even put into words what was going on in that moment. I just
so your daughter was 4 at the time.
Yeah. So we went on a walk and had that talk, and she's a warrior. I mean, she's just an amazing kid, unbelievable kid.
So she's 13 now?
She's 13 now. And she's thriving and doing well. She's still got her stuff, but every 13-year-old does. But she's very high emotional IQ. So she was able to connect even at 4 with me on this topic. And now she knows way more than she thinks she knows, And so that's been an asset for her to heal throughout this whole process.
Brian, if you don't mind me asking directly, you said you've been there, you've done that. I have been in the space of, having to share that with my boys. I feel that our story was very, very different because my background was very different. And the one thing that is really important for me, for everyone to find answers to, is the addiction part. I don't have any experience in the addiction part. And I would love to hear from you. How did you find your way out of that in a time where everything was so deeply emotional, and really, at that point where you're losing your wife and you have to tell your 4-year-old daughter and you have to get your act together for her? How did you find your way out of addiction and through the grief at the same time? This is incredible.
It was disastrous at best, as I mentioned before. It wasn't pretty. If I could do it over again, I would do it differently. One of the biggest things that I realized was that I didn't have the supports that I really needed. I hadn't put time into that because I was all about me. I was all about that pipe. I was all about poor old Brian who's going through whatever, instead of making it about my support network. And if I had put more time into that support network, I think it probably would have gone a lot better, a lot smoother, a lot differently. Ultimately, it took a lot of very humbling failures for me to be discovered and fall on my face. And I ended up marrying my vision. One thing led to another. I eventually, it got to a point where I think we gave up the crack because it was like, this doesn't look good on us anymore. And my daughter was getting to an age where she was starting to put it together a little bit, and I could tell she was asking more questions, and I'm like, I don't want to answer these questions, so I need to get rid of this. And so we stopped using in the same ways, and stuffing the trauma and the grief and all that I was not processing through. And so one of the biggest turning point, and I'm grateful for it. I went to work one day. I was watching a Warriors game the night before, and went to work and got up and had a mixed drink and went to work. And I got into a point in my own addiction. I just thought I was pretty much a big deal, and I couldn't, I was invincible. I couldn't be caught. I was just too good at covering up, and I don't think I was good at it at all. I think people were just like, well, he keeps coming to work and doing his job, so I just won't say anything.
Let's not say something.
Yeah, like, I don't know, he's figuring it out somehow, hopefully won't kill anybody on the road. Thankfully I didn't, and everything was safe on that side. But I got to work and sat right beside the regional director, and she smelled alcohol on me, and told my supervisor, and he had a talk with me afterwards. And then the whole process started. It was in Michigan, and the state of Michigan was just like, you're licensed in our state, so you've got to go through this treatment, or we're going to pull your license and you're never going to be licensed again. And that was my livelihood. So I understood the importance of protecting that. And so I agreed to do this 3 years of treatment, very intense treatment, groups and individual on a weekly basis, multiple times, weekly basis, with random drug screens. And it's a very, very intense program that I hated with everything that I had in me starting off. But now I look back.
But did it help you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And
I can only imagine that you would not love a process like that, when you go from like being not caught for such a long time, and you think you get away with everything. And I can so understand that whole, feeling invincible. You think you've got it, and until you don't. And so it came as a blessing in disguise, I guess, in hindsight.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's addiction, it tricks your brain into thinking you're something you're not, and gets you going down the wrong road. And that becomes the new norm, the new routine, the new feel good, the thing that you really feel like works best because you have control. You think you have control, right? Because you're making the choices on what you're going to use, what you're going to drink, or whatever the case is. And that was really in the midst of that whole treatment process. I think that was something that really opened my eyes. It's like, Brian, you know what? You really suck at accountability. You really are horrible at structure in your own life. You're not good at holding yourself to a line. That's something you suck at, right? And so that program taught me accountability. And once I got to a place where I just let go and I surrendered, the AA 12-step stuff, right? So once I surrendered, I realized that their control, their structure that I hated so much, was offering a whole truckload of freedom for me in my life. And once I started embracing that, it was pretty easy. It was pretty easy.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I also want to make a point about that, because often when we go into story and we share the story, and I see that in my own story so often as well. When we talk through it in hindsight, it's all sounds so easy, but when you go through it, it's actually not. You know, we realized that crack wasn't looking good on us, so we just stopped it. It's not as easy as we just stopped it. You know, there is this
Right.
process, and as you said, you know, it took you a few years to get through, and you hated it, but in hindsight, it was an absolute blessing. So I'm saying that because, you know, whoever is watching this who might be in a situation like that, or might even just be sliding into a situation like that, or even thinking about it, um, my shout out, I think our shout out here is get support. Really get
Yeah. Yeah.
support. You're not ever alone in this. We often think we're all alone in this journey, and we're not. There's always support out there, but it starts with us.
Get a drink and you have a drink on the way to
Yeah,
work. I mean, like that's just what I did. There was
yeah.
mornings that, excuse me, there was mornings that
That's you.
I really didn't want to have a drink, but it's just
Mm,
what I did, you know, so I
yeah,
just did it. And so when you get to that place and you realize you're doing stuff and you're not thinking it through, like literally your body just goes to the store and it takes the same
yeah,
route, and you start realizing these patterns that are creating in your life. It's just a matter of time before addiction is going to take you on one level or another, whether it be your
yeah.
life, your livelihood, your reputation. I mean, whatever it is,
Mm,
it's just a matter of time before it's going to bring you to your knees. So it's important to look at that and realize that I still have control of this process,
mm,
but right now, as much as I think I have control, it's controlling me. So I've got to
yeah.
break that pattern and figure out how do I regain this structure and accountability that does me so well.
Yeah. And I think it's also like it's the awareness, you know, if we're not aware that we actually do have a problem, or that it is a problem, or that we are addicted, then there's really not much we can do about it. It takes the
Yeah.
awareness first to be able to heal something, or to change a pattern, or change a behavior. So once you got through that process, Brian, I'd love to hear how you went from, okay, I am an addict. I am getting help. I'm getting through the process. You know, I am in this program and it has helped me. I have come out. And now, I mean, look at you now, you know, you are a fully functional, really good, like I believe, I have no proof here, but, you know, a really good psychologist. You are changing people's lives. And I often feel that when you work with somebody, be it a psychology or coach, who has gone through the depth of it and has come through it,
Hmm.
there's such a different level to the support that you receive, because there's a different level of understanding, a deeper
Yeah.
level of understanding. And I'm not putting it out there to go like, okay, every psychologist has to be an addict first because before they're great. I'm not saying that at all. Yet
Right.
it does add to this, to the experience where you're like, you really do understand addiction, and now you're doing something about it. Now you're helping those in deepest need of that
Hmm.
support. So um, tell us a little bit about that part, because that's the number one
Yeah.
reason why we wanted you here. You know, share a bit about how you do work with people these days, what you do offer, and then we'll definitely
Yeah.
share your links as well, how people can connect.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I'm still a mess. I'm just less of a mess. And I think I've got more, I've got my mess in more of a pile. My poop is in a pile in a way. Right. And so
Yeah.
I've learned to manage that. But I'm still a mess. I'm still human. I still drink, even
Mm,
after all that period. I don't do
mm,
it in excess now. And I found this was a really big thing for me to realize. It was a huge eye opener for me that, initially, when you're going through a hard time, trauma or whatever it is, addiction actually works. It will help you get
mm,
through it, right?
mm.
But the problem is addiction is not going to just drop off once you're through the experience, and you're not
Yeah.
actually healing anything. You're
Mm.
covering up, right? So
Yeah.
you're
Just
you're
numbing
doing
it.
something, yeah, not to have to
Yeah.
deal with your stuff. You're
Mm,
doing whatever you're doing, and that gets you through that difficult time. But then on the back end, you're no longer in that hot plate, but now you've
mm.
created this pattern of this pattern of dysfunction in your life that you now
Yeah.
got to clean up on top of the stuff that you didn't clean up before,
Mm,
right? And so I found for me it was like the alcohol, the drugs, all that stuff was a huge crutch for me. It was a huge support as through my eyes, what I saw
of
in the
course. Yeah.
moment. A horrible support, but it was working on some levels. And then I got out of everything. And once I went through those 3 years of intense counseling and worked through a lot of my grief and the trauma that I had in my own life, it was no longer a draw, like it didn't, I didn't really, I could have 2 drinks and I really didn't want another one, and I was fine,
Yeah.
So I realized that really was what was happening in my life. I had a lot of unresolved grief and trauma that I hadn't addressed. And once I was able to do that, it got me to a place that I could live a healthier life and have a different perspective and not be stuck in this dysfunction that was so destructive for me. And so I try to share a lot. A lot of counselors are really careful with self-disclosure and that kind of thing in counseling sessions. I'm pretty wide open. I share a lot of my own struggles that I had in the past, because I think it does add value to the direction I'm offering for a client. And there's a lot of times when I'm talking to folks and I literally can feel, I know exactly how they're feeling. Like I can feel what you're feeling right now. I've been there. I'm wearing your shoes. I've been in those shoes. I know what that, and I know how to get you out. We got to change the shoes. There's a great pair over here. They're brand new. They're going to feel great on your feet, So I think there's a lot of value to it. And I think it helps also to normalize some of addiction. And I think that's important, because it helps to remove that stigma. It's like, we all got our stuff, and if I can, a lot of times folks will come and it's just kind of like, oh, Brian, the counselor, he's perfect. He knows all. No, I don't. I've been through a lot of darkness, and I want to share the knowledge gained with you so that you don't have to feel the same pain. So I think there is a lot of value in the way that I use those experiences to kind of guide folks, and it helps them understand, like, hey, you're not flawed. You've got, this is a chapter. This is a season. I'm going to journey through it with you. We're going to come out on the other end.
I like that.
So stick with me.
I agree with that. I often share a lot of my personal stuff in the group, in our trainings that we do and everything that we offer in the healing journeys and the retreat. I do share a lot from my own path, because I feel whatever can help other people to understand, I've got them, and it is absolutely normal what they feel. I also don't have a problem with that, and people who've watched my interviews and have been to my programs know that I do share a lot, and I don't mind that at all. I'm a very open book, and I have got nothing to hide, the ups and the downs, and I feel it's very
and it's crazy at times, and we're all in this together. It's just one big village, and we're trying to make it work. Be kind, be understanding as you can be. Forgiveness is huge for self. Forgiveness doesn't always work out when you're doing it with someone else. It's more about you releasing yourself from that situation. But and realizing that life is a journey, and by definition that includes chapters and seasons. So when you're in that dark place, realize you're just in a place, a spot. And sometimes I forget who it said it. I love this quote. It's about sometimes when you're in a dark place, it's not because you're lost, you're being planted. I completely screwed it up, I'm sure, but
no, I know exactly what you mean.
I forget
the darkness
is
because you've been planted, and the seed will grow. It's just so beautiful. I love that quote as well. I don't know it by heart, but I know exactly what quote you mean, and it's such a beautiful picture that we're painting here. And thank you so much for being here. And I really want to thank you for sharing so deeply and so openly and honestly with us. I love when we can have conversations like that and really normalize what's going on in this world. So it was so valuable. Thank you so much. And as I said, we'll be sharing your contacts. And thank you for being here. This is Brian and Marie signing off. Bye for now.